As this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. If you please honor our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Madonza.
Here.
Councilor Mercia. Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Noon.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Leahy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. First, we have on the agenda Mayor's Business Proclamation declaring Saturday, November 24th, Small Business Saturday. I offer this on behalf of the City Council and the City of Lowell. Whereas the government of Lowell, Massachusetts believes that small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the glue that holds communities together. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 28 million small businesses in the United States, representing more than 99% of American companies and creating 2/3 of new jobs and generating half of the private gross domestic product. And small businesses employ half of the private employees in the United States, and 93% of U.S. consumers believe it is important to support the local small businesses. Whereas Lowell, Massachusetts supports our local businesses that creates jobs, boosts our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods, and advocacy groups and public and private organizations across the country have endorsed that Saturday after Thanksgiving is Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Patrick O. Murphy, Mayor of the City of Lowell, do hereby proclaim November 24th as Small Business Saturday and urge residents of our community to support small businesses on the 24th and throughout the year, given this 20th day of November 2012. We have with us here tonight Stacy from the Merrimack Valley Small Business Administration.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about small business. Since 1998, Community Teamworks Merrimack Valley Small Business Center has provided support to a diverse group of entrepreneurs interested in creating, sustaining, and growing their small businesses. We provide technical support by empowering entrepreneurs with education and training to help them make the right choices and increase their chances for success. We also provide financial support through micro-lending, providing small loans to low and moderate income entrepreneurs. Supporting small business, especially micro enterprises, which are businesses with less than 5 employees, is key to our economic prosperity. Here in Lowell, these micro enterprises are our local retail stores. They're artists, the food trucks, bakeries, restaurants, you name it, they're all over Lowell. And many of them are owned by immigrants and represent our diverse community. Micro enterprises represent 87% of all small businesses here in Massachusetts and are key to a healthy job creation strategy as well. Because did you know that if 1 in 3 micro enterprises in the US hired a new worker, we would end our unemployment issues. So, how can we support small business and help them grow and in turn hire more people? Well, now's the time to make a conscious effort to support locally owned retail stores, artists, and other small businesses by purchasing goods and services locally. With the holiday shopping season around the corner, now is the time to make a conscious effort to shop locally and by shopping small, you can provide a big investment in Lowell. Stop and think about what you can buy locally before you head out to the mall or outside of Lowell. Just to give you a few quick examples from clients that we serve at the center, Unique You Salon, which just relocated on Central Street in downtown, not only does do they provide salon services, but they also carry a large selection of beauty products that are just as good as any you can find in any department store. G-Trends on Merrimack Street not only offers real Converse that you can buy in big box stores, but they also have a lot of jewelry. And with all the holiday parties that you're headed to, perhaps instead of buying just some baked goods online that you might send to someone, why don't you go to Soey's Bakery across the street and purchase some fresh pastries? And of course, we have tons of artists in the area that you can buy art from and provide really great, memorable presents and gifts. So this Saturday is Small Business Saturday, so it's a perfect time to support our local businesses. And while you're out at the City of Lights Parade, it's a perfect opportunity to check out what's available. So, after all, these businesses are owned by our family, our friends, and our neighbors. And if we commit to shopping local, we continue to help them grow and create jobs here in Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. And again, this Saturday, we have the City of Lights Parade, so come on down and support your local businesses. Next, we have the city clerk's portion of the agenda, minutes of the city council meeting, November 13th, minutes of the public safety subcommittee, November 13th for acceptance.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Mendonça.
Yes. I just have a quick correction. On the council meeting minutes, bottom page 1, there were my comments regarding the public hearing. Councilman Dodds has stated that he would be all right with the withdrawal, as any new petition would reflect the character of the neighborhood. That part's fine. It's the part beginning with the "and" that I would like to change. That currently says, "and he would be more comfortable in releasing commercial property from the tax roll." I'd like to change that to, "and he would not be comfortable converting commercially zoned property to residential zoning."
Thank you. Any further comments? Councilor Laurie?
No.
Okay. So entertain the motion to accept the minutes as amended. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Councilor
just
Laurie.
have a point of personal privilege? We have a large group of people here on the motion I have later on down the line. If I could just take it out of order?
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
Thank you very much. It's the motion number 20. Request the city manager have the proper department explore the possibility of rezoning 160.1 Swan Street and all of Bigelow Street to suburban single-family district. Last week, we had a public meeting here concerning...
Councilor, the motion has to be read and then seconded, and then we'll...
Excuse me?
The motion has to be read and then seconded, and then we'll get into the discussion. Motion by Councilor Laurie, request the city manager have proper department explore the possibility of rezoning 160.1 Swan Street and all of Bigelow Street to the suburban single-family district. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion request came from last week. It was an item we had on a public motion on rezoning Bigelow Street. One of the developers, and it seems both parties have come to some type of conclusion that suburban single-family would be better. I think all the parties agreed to this. So it's just a motion to have the city manager send it right to that department and explore the possibility. Thank you. I think there was one person here that might want to speak on that, too. If it would be okay. Yeah. Thank you.
If you please just state your name and address for the record.
Calvin Miller, 38 Bigelow Street in Lowell. And thank you, Mr. Mayor and distinguished members of the council. I know I've spoke before you many times before. And this has been a long and tedious task, along with the Swan Street Development Company. And as Mr. Councilman Laurie had mentioned, I believe now the Swan Street Development Company has accepted the fact that we do not want any type of high-rise commercial property built off the back of 61 Swan Street. We would rather see it used for single family, but in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, prior to the Swan Street Development Company getting involved and buying up 2 properties on Bigelow Street, 61 Bigelow and 73 Bigelow, and then taking a partial part of 73 Bigelow and adding that to 61 Bigelow to make a total of somewhere around 16,000 square feet. That leaves 73 Bigelow Street with around 7,600 square feet. And then last year was approved 2 traditional single-family lots in a public street where the house at 61 Bigelow used to stand. So last year was approved 2 additional single-family lots then, one on 7,500 and some odd square feet, one on 7,000 square feet. So the only issue remaining, and it may not be an issue at all, I'm not an engineer, or at least not a land engineer, I'm an electronics engineer. But I tried to figure out, based upon the plans that were put forth by the Swan Street Development, to figure out how many houses could they build. And knowing that, Swan Street Development is in the business of trying to make money, as every business is, and I can't say as I blame them for that, I figured that, they're going to try and make the lot sizes as close to 10,000 square feet as possible. So I'm figuring somewhere between 4 to 5 houses with maybe 4,500 or so square feet left over. So what I would like to propose then is, when this comes back to you again, and I will bring it up with their attorney as well, what I'd like to see them do with that additional land then is equally, or try to equally somehow divide it between the 2 7,000 square feet lots that were approved last year, thus bringing them up to somewhere around 9,000 square feet. All the other lots then would be close to, 10,000 or a little over. Again, just to try and keep as much of the neighborhood intact as possible. Other than that, I think, and I presented the council, and Mr. Mayor signed petition by the majority of the Bigelow Street neighbors last week that we were all in favor of the suburban single-family rezoning. So that's all I got. And again, I really do thank you all for your support and your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Ken Harkins, 110 Bigelow Street. First of all, I want to thank everyone for having a time and the attention to this detail, but I want to thank Adam Backey, because when we came in here with the problem, I was going to be out of town, and Doug said, "Who can I talk to?" And I said, "Talk to Adam." I said, "He's worked well with us before, and as you can see, he worked well with us again." So based on that, I want to ask the city manager to assign him to another task, which is
City manager?
hey, he worked on this one. He'll fix this one too. Down on my street, right, comes from Bigelow Street to Robert E. Bigelow Street, is where Lowell and Chelmsford tie in their water line, and you were supposed to fix that when you was in Chelmsford. So now perhaps you could talk to Paul Cohen and get that fixed?
Mr. Manager.
The water districts in Chelmsford are not part of the town government of Chelmsford. A battle I fought for many a year over there, so I'm not sure we can do much. And they don't want to. They didn't want to listen to me back then. I don't think they want to listen to me now. But I'll see what I can do.
Just put Adam on. He's did good so far.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Opposed? So voted. Returning to the regularly scheduled portion of the agenda, we have city manager communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Council Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing that did come in the packet this week, and I'm looking for it now, is a report back from the Parks Department and the Police Department on the summer programs. And I think both departments, and I know Superintendent LaValle's here tonight, deserve a lot of credit. That program in the parks was expanded to larger size in years. More parks, more facilities, more events, more children. And the second part of that was asking the police department to become involved, and they took over the training, part of the training with the park instructors. They worked with the Parks Department, the lifeguards, on training, and it's my understanding, I'm looking through the reports, we didn't have a substantial incident this year in the parks. And when you consider they went probably from June to August, we hired, I don't know, 50, 60 probably children in the city this year to work. And, you know, when you look at the size of the programs this year and the fact that we had no problems, I think both departments really need a pat in the back. And I guess it was Officer William Bernard who was going around to the different parks and meeting with the children. But I just want to thank both departments for the work they did to expand the programs and to make them safer. And a little bit down the line tonight, will be another motion, maybe we can expand it even more. But with the chief here, and I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Bellegarde and Chief LaValle for their efforts this summer.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any communications? Councilor Noon.
Mr. Mayor, thank you, sir. In response to your motion, the managers, with regard to the city tree ordinance, there's a issue with regard to, tasks and tree replacement and all the other things. One of the things I noticed that to address a lot of those issues, that I would, through you to the managers, to have, the tree board appoint so that they then have a task to do in terms of looking into the short-term and long-term plan and some implementation of the ordinance that was in place. So I would suggest that through you to the managers to have that the 5 board member appointed as soon as possible so that we can get started with this. Thank you.
Councilor Lowell and then Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's something that didn't come in on this packet but has come in the past is, and I know I had a motion along with Councilor Kennedy, the VFW and Bridge Street intersection and the issues. And I'm on the board at NEMCOG, and that was it was scheduled for an FY13 to be redone, and now it's got kicked back a year. But I understand there's going to be a meeting very shortly with the departments. So what I'd like to do is probably just put a motion on the floor that the Transportation Subcommittee come back. I know Councilor Mendonça, some time ago, we got the booklet on the traffic in the city and made a motion that went to Transportation. But now with this coming in, I'd like to ask that the Transportation Subcommittee do meet with the next few weeks with the recommendations of all parties. Thank you.
Motion by Councilor Lowell to refer the Transportation Committee, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Councilor Mendonça on that? Okay, Councilor Elliott and then Councilor Mendonça.
Thank you. I wanted to speak. Councilor Noon was referencing one of the memos we got on the tree issue, the tree ordinance, in response to a motion you filed. This was, when we adopted this ordinance, it's a good ordinance, and it was put in place as a result of some problems, or removal of trees in the city a number of years ago. And so there are a number of recommendations in here, and I wanted to follow through one of the recommendations that we send this to the environmental subcommittee because, I think it's an important resource. It was it was somewhat controversial when when this ordinance was adopted. And I understand it has some issues with, resources and staffing, but I think we need to take a close look at it to see how we can make sure this ordinance can be effective, especially in light of the fact, and I just sent you a picture, Mr. Manager, of some trees that were cut down at the Walgreens development site. And I'm quite sure that's state land because the parcel of property that abuts the land that Walgreens bought was owned by the city. And there is a fence there and quite a few trees. I want to say 10, 12, I didn't count them, but there was some substantial removal of trees. And, when I asked you earlier, you didn't know of it, so I'll presume that there was no permit and there was no inspection. So it's kind of timely that we're looking at this tree ordinance because, trees just can't be, there were big trees and they can't be replaced. So I would request, as part of sending this to the environmental subcommittee, if you could look into that, Mr. Manager, because, it looks like there was clear cutting there, and I am quite sure that is state-owned land because, that piece of property is part of the river swale, or part of the bridge property. So if you could look into that, I would appreciate it because it's sad that many trees were cut down, and I know it's just so there could be visibility from the bridge into their new development, but it's wrong. So I'd like to make those two motions, Mr. Mayor.
Sure. Motions by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Mr. Manager.
No, I was just going to comment, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor that I did receive the email, and we will follow up. I was not aware that I haven't been down there in the last few days, but so I'm not sure if there was a permit pulled or any of that. So we'll definitely check on that. And I do think that with regards to the tree ordinance overall, there are a number of recommendations that a number of people have worked on that have set forth in this this memo to you. And I do think discussion because I think it is an important ordinance and one that's I don't know if it's ever been fully implemented since its adoption. For instance, I don't think there ever really has been a tree board based upon what we can track down to see if that was ever put in place. But we have some ideas of how we could implement that as well as some of the other aspects of the ordinance that have gone by the wayside that really should be implemented. So look forward to discussing that with the subcommittee.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I did read through these recommendations, and some of them, replacement inch for inch. We have to be practical as well. Some of the trees that die, they're removed for a number of reasons, particularly with the storms we have. It's hard to meet some of these measures. On the other hand, there's got to be some balance, so we are replacing trees because they're such a valuable resource. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the communications? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. Good report on the healthy summers. So a lot of good work done by the Recreation Department and the Police Department. I wanted to mention that as well. And I did want to say I got my response for the Andover Street Bridge, which was repaired very fast, so thank you to everybody involved on that. I did want to mention the city here. We have in our report that the city is asked to present at the National League of Cities Convention in Boston next week. So kudos to the city. We were recognized as one of 21 programs throughout the nation, and we're going to be presenting at the convention next week, so congratulations to the manager's office and everybody involved in that. And then I did have one question on Councilor Mercier's report about the phone lines. I didn't quite understand that. If the manager could elaborate on that. It just says in the memo that, I guess the motion before I got here was to assure that the council that new phone lines will function during power outages as to not interrupt or prevent residents' emergency calls. So the explanation just basically tells us that we have generators, but what were the new lines? Just new lines to the police department or new lines in the city, or?
I think there were some concerns by, first off, let me thank you for the mentioning the National League of Cities. We're very pleased that we were invited to present. They sought nominations from cities. We were contacted, and we submitted our several different projects, and this being one of them that they were picked out of the hundreds that they received from across the country. So we're very pleased with that recognition for the neighborhood initiative effort.
Yeah, that was great.
As far as the phone lines go, I think Councilor Mercia was concerned that the new lines that we put in as part of the revamping of the telephone system were voice over internet protocol, that were new phone lines and new phone, because we moved off of the Centrex system of Verizon and new phone hardware. Even the old lines that we had here would have problems if there were an electrical outage. But the emergency lines that we have over in the dispatch, I think her concern was that somehow those were tied in with the dispatch system that we have. Those are all on a generator. So, for instance, in the last hurricane, if we had lost power, all those phone lines at the 911 center would have continued to operate. They would have, if the power went down, they would have kicked on to the generator that we have in that building. The phone systems here in this building currently are on a backup system that keeps them going for a number of hours, but we're working out now to have those put on a generator as well, so that this building functions. But the 911 center was what Councilor Mercia was most concerned with, and that does have backup power in the event of an electrical outage.
If we had some sort of catastrophe, do we have a command center that ties City Hall and I guess DPW and?
We have, when we go into a state of emergency, we open up the Emergency Operations Center, which is in the police department. It has all the phone lines that are brought in there, as well as computer access and other means of communication. It's right next to the dispatch center. And so, for instance, again, on the hurricane, that was opened up, and we had represented it. When we opened the EOC, we have representatives of all the departments sitting there most of the time. So we'll have representatives from, obviously, the police are there, fire, public works, health department, the manager's office, really anyone that we need to can be sitting there to be able to handle any phone calls that come in or make any decisions that need to be made. And we operate under a standard an emergency operations plan, but which is based upon the incident command system that every community really has to operate under.
All right, well, thank you. And again, congratulations on the recognition. I'm going to try to drive down with Henry myself next week and attend. It's quite an accomplishment.
My
Thank
recommendation is that you drive and not have.
Sure. Okay.
Councilman Donza.
Yes, I had some questions about the tree ordinance. Most of them have been answered, so I do support going through the subcommittee process to address many of these recommendations for change. It needs to be practically implemented. Some of it's a little, well, it expects a lot more than maybe we could do at the moment. Obviously, replacing tree inch for inch. If it's an old tree 3 feet across that's blocking a sidewalk, we just want a smaller tree there, not 15 trees down the street necessarily. And that would be very costly in order to do that anyway. So I do agree. There's also a recommendation about, instead of creating a whole new board, bring it under the Conservation Commission, and that might be a way to get it going more quickly than actually having to appoint a whole new board and having an entire bureaucracy dedicated just to the trees. So I do support going to the subcommittee with that and reviewing all of those portions of the ordinance. Another item that was in the packet regarding annual block grant funding, And we know that a lot of the funding from the federal government is up in the air at the moment, so we're not sure what it'll be, but they are projecting that the amount available for competitive proposals from community groups within the city, for instance, was going to be $247,000 this year out of approximately 1.7 million, which is the bulk of that's already targeted to certain initiatives that the city undertakes. My question was, do you happen to have what we had for funding last year as far as the amount available for competitive grants? Unfortunately, I don't think Adam's here this evening.
Yeah, he knows those numbers off the top of his head, and I don't happen to know that at this time, but we can get that to the council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Can I go back to this tree memo again? Mr. Manager, who, as the ordinance is currently written, if somebody sees, a tree being cut down on public property, who do they call? Is it, I know there's a designated tree warden, but is it the Commissioner of Public Works right now that they should call? Because I did field a call about 2 weeks ago from a tree being cut down on Luz Ave, and I didn't know who they should call. So,
Well, certainly the commissioner has acted as both Mr. Snow and Mr. McCarthy, and I believe Mr. Walsh have all acted as the tree warden. Now, that position really should be one that has the proper certification and training under the statute and under the ordinance. But if there's a tree being cut down on public property, there's several different places they could call. They could call the commissioner's office, they could call the manager's office, or they could call inspectional services. I would say any of those could act immediately to take action.
okay, so
If they call the manager's office, for instance, we would refer it immediately to the Public Works or inspectional services to go out there and try to take action.
okay, so tomorrow or soon, Public Works is going to go out and look at least, that clear cutting that took place at Walgreens, and then they will determine what's the next action that.
We'll probably refer that to both DPW and inspectional services. DPW obviously will have access through the city engineer to determine which property, whether it's on state property or city property.
Okay.
And then inspectional services will look at any type of permits that were pulled for that, and they'll work in tandem to take corrective action.
Okay, thank you.
Which obviously if they're down is always problematic, but it could be some type of citation or citing of the problem.
And could they be required to replace, you're not going to replace, 10, 12, 15, 18-inch caliber trees, but they be required to?
Well, that's certainly one possibility,
Okay.
or some type of fine, or
Okay.
both.
Thank you. Mayor, the other issue, there is not a communication. I was anticipating communication from a motion that Councilor Laurie filed on the bridge, the Spaghettiville Bridge. If there's no objection, could we either suspend the rules or have the manager give us any update on that?
I don't have an update for you right now, but we are looking at some different options. Actually, the option, Councilor, that you threw out there is one that we're investigating right now, but we're also trying to work with Guilford to see what actions they can take on that.
Okay, it was just an idea, and it's just a simple sign. I know the newspaper did an article on it, and it was just an idea I sent to you and to members of the council that, was done in Georgia, and it's a sign that they hit it, then they're going to hit the bridge. Just something to stop them.
Right.
Before they go ahead, and then at that point, if they can be fined or whatever the case may be. But that's good to know that, because I think you've said it before, and as long as I've been here, and even before then, we've tried to reach out. It was Pan Am Railroad before, and now Guilford, and if they don't want to do anything, that's unfortunate. But at least we can take some steps to prevent that from happening again. And it doesn't look like it's a very expensive solution, but it just may work. So, okay, I'll look forward to that report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just following up on that, I saw the email that Councilor Elliott sent forward, and, you know, that's just one more idea. I think it's a good idea, just anything we can do out there. I saw in the paper, they were talking about the laser beams, they're putting up the machine, and they're 10 grand, and hopefully the company would think about putting them in. I don't know if there's anything we can do legally to enhance the businesses in there that they get tied up whenever this happens. There's a furniture store, they can't do deliveries, there's sub shops, there's bakeries, and everything just gets tied up in, you know, plus the neighborhood, so, thank you.
Any further discussion on the communications? Entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed or voted? Next, we have, being after 7 o'clock, public hearings, general public hearing for fuel storage. Transgas Incorporated requests an additional 6,000 gallons for liquefied natural gas. At this point, I'd open up the public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor?
Good evening, Mayor Murphy, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dave Gendel. I represent Transgas, who's doing business down at 87 Industrial Ave East for the permit for the new liquefied natural gas mobile facility. I have with me some of the management team tonight. We have Tim Meehan in the back. Tim, raise your hand. Vice President of Operations. We also have Ray Watkins and also John Sirota. I think some of these fellows live right here in Lowell as well. This new facility is a step in the right direction for us and for this facility. It just is a chance to kind of relieve our dependence on foreign oil. It also allows us to continue our very safe operation at Transgas, which I think we've had a good record on safety, and this technology has proven to be very safe. It's safer actually than the diesel fuel. And it's a step in the right direction as far as emissions, and also it adds new jobs and new growth for the city of Lowell as well. So there's lots of opportunity here. Obviously, one of our concerns is we also want to be a good neighbor to our residents who abut our property and have taken the opportunity just to send out a informational piece to them, and I think some of the councils got this as well, just what it looks like and what we're proposing to do. So I'm not certainly the resident expert, but we have these gentlemen here as well with us this evening, and we have at this particular point received an okay on the permit from the state fire marshal and also the fire chief in Lowell. So I think at this point we're looking for a endorsement from the city council to continue this permitting process and get this thing up and running. Our plan right now with hope is March of 2013. So.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Martin?
We did already receive the application for the license. It's signed off by the chief, so on that basis, I would move that we approve this application.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia. Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
7 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have utility public hearing, pole location for National Grid to install one pole and wire at Mort Avenue. At this point, I'd open it up for a public hearing for those wishing to speak in favor.
Hi, my name's Dave Aguirre, and I'm representing National Grid. National Grid is asking the city of Lowell for permission to install a pole on Morton Street. The purpose of this pole is to support, is to support pole 3. Pole 3 was leaning towards pole 2, so this pole will support pole 3.
Thank you. Open it up for anyone else wishing to speak in favor. In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition, seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move to approve.
Move for approval by Council Leahy.
Well, I had a question, but. Thank
Council
you.
Leahy?
I had a question. Where's Mort Ave? Is that over in Centerville?
Yes, it is.
And why are we moving this again?
The pole 3 is leaning. We're not removing the pole, we're adding a different pole to support pole 3. Pole 3 is leaning towards pole 2. The wires that are on it are pulling that pole towards pole 2.
This is kind of like the street kind of cuts up and around. It's not a long street, right?
I believe it is. I was the one who wrote up the job. I did this about a couple of months ago, but.
Runs between Bankin and Methuen. Yeah, all right. I thought I went by there, and it looked like a new pole, and it was in the way of a driveway, if I have the right location.
I tried to put it, I didn't put it in the way of, I don't believe it's in the way of a driveway.
Well, I mean, I looked at the pole that was there now, and it looks like there's a pole. I went by the address, so I went by, there's no address number here, but 2 weeks ago when we had to bring it to a public meeting, I went by the address number and I looked, and it looked like the pole you wanted to move was a new pole in front of a driveway.
No, I'm adding a pole. I'm not moving a pole. The pole that's there is existing, but it's leaning.
Okay,
So I'm adding a pole further down from that.
okay. All right, thank you.
So the motion would be to refer to the wire inspector for report and recommendation.
So
So
moved.
moved by Council Lowry, seconded by Council Elliott. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing on, we have on the manager's portion of the agenda, an order for a 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full rating by Council Mendonça, seconded by Council Lowry. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title, in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Lowry. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendonça.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia. Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Lowry.
Yes.
7 yeas.
Next, we have an ordinance for the quarterly traffic in November. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Mendonça, seconded by Council Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title, in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances for the City of Lowell, Massachusetts, the code with respect to Chapter 266, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. Entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing on December 4th, 2012 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
So moved by Council Noon, seconded by Council Lowry. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted.
Question, quickly.
Council Leahy.
Okay, so all these requests or whatever however you classify them, this gets referred to a public meeting, and then we discuss everything that's on here? Okay, so could I just ask, Lane Street is on there a few times. Are we taking the ordinance off, or are we putting one on there? Is that on there twice, did I see? Lane Street is the one up off of Varnum Ave that we put signs up and said you couldn't park, overnight parking, and then...
That was put on a 60-day trial,
Yeah.
And now it's here as a part of the permanent ordinance of the city.
So is it on for discussion to keep it permanent or to take it off?
Councilman
This would-
Donza.
I believe this would take that off.
Actually, it changes the times that no parking is allowed. It was originally on from, I forget, 11 a.m. to 6 a.m., and it's being deleted from that and added to the 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it adds
Right.
2 hours essentially that no parking is allowed. If you find both of them, you'll see one's a delete and one's an add.
All right.
Thank you,
So in
Council.
2 weeks, that's when we discuss whether we like it or not.
I found the other one, right?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion? It had been referred already. Next is an ordinance to create a victim services advocate, full-time grant-funded position, establishing the salary at $36,581.85 to $42,866.54. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Noon, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title, in City Council ordinance. An ordinance creating one victim services advocate, full-time grant-funded position, and establishing the salary in the police department. Entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing also on December 4th, 2012 at 7 p.m. So moved by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilman Donza. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a vote. Approve City of Lowell Community Choice Power Supply Program, the aggregation plan. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title, in City Council vote. Approving the City of Lowell Community Choice Power Supply Program aggregation plan. What's the wish of the council? Councilor Elliott.
Well, I was going to ask the manager a question, but you just exited the room. You can answer, Mr. Moore. Can you explain what this is all about? I mean, I did read through it, but could you just go through an explanation? Because it affects the community. And does, I guess my first question, would the city be part of this aggregation, city as a consumer?
This, if you remember, back in January, we presented to the council an overview of this. I think one of the councilors was not here at the time. So it's a good question to review this. This is a program where the city, through its purchasing power, can offer the citizens of the city who are customers of electricity, for electricity, not customers of the city, but customers of National Grid, allow them to join into some competitive procurement and pricing. During deregulation, probably more than a decade ago, a lot of large commercial accounts were able to go and seek alternative suppliers and lower their costs. Theoretically, the same ability existed for residents, but there wasn't a good mechanism to make that happen. Municipal aggregation is actually that mechanism, and it's finally taking hold. What would happen is the city would seek competitive bids for large capacity purchases of electricity and pass those if we're able to get it, pass those savings on to the consumer. It's relatively transparent, the process. Everything the city would do would be an open book. The bill that the citizen would get would continue to be from National Grid. There would be a few changes on the bill, But other than that, we are prohibited by law from offering a price that's not less than they're already paying as the default rate through National Grid. We have hired a consultant through an RFP process to help guide us through the start to finish the process of approval. We've gone before the Department of Energy Resources at the state, presented a plan. That plan met their approval. They had a few suggestions. That plan is on the agenda for the next item. Our representatives from Colonial Power are here, and possibly some of the more technical questions should be addressed to them. But in a nutshell, that's the program. Eventually, when it's all approved, the citizens of Lowell will have an alternative to National Grid.
Thank you, Mr. Moses. I don't know what the next question is. I'm not opposed to this. I guess I just don't fully grasp the concept. We have a consultant, and they're going to go out and solicit through a bid process that there's another energy or energy companies. Is going to be one that people can elect to go to. So, for instance, I just went through a scenario because people at home watching, and I want to understand this. It's not, I mean, I guess I get nervous when I see in the second paragraph that the city seeks to take control of energy prices. That made me concerned, but your explanation somewhat answered it. We're going to go out and people are going to have a choice. They're just going to have one choice. They're going to be able to say, look, I can get a better rate with another company instead of National Grid. But what if that company, all of a sudden, their prices go through the roof? Is it going to be for a fixed year? Are you looking for a vote on this tonight? You're looking to move forward on it?
We would like to move.
Because I don't know enough about it, and if we're committing, the city on behalf of the residents,
Sure.
And I read through it a couple of times, so maybe it's just me.
If I may, Counselor, I think those are some good questions, and we have the consultant here that can work, that can hopefully, I'm sure, can answer those. We also have the presentation that we made back in January, if the council would like us to walk through that again. There have been a number of communities that have looked at this. I think the energy deregulation goes back about 15 years ago now, and a number of communities looked at it at the time, and there really wasn't much. I believe the Cape communities moved forward with it. A couple of others, I think there's probably about 7 now in the state or thereabouts. The consultants would know this better than I. But the idea is really, and maybe I have a question for the consultants. I know that myself, I've received postcards in the mail or letters in the mail from different providers that have offered an option to National Grid. And you sign on, and it's for a period of time, it's less. And I guess one of my questions would be, if I'm a resident of the city of Lowell and I get one of those, and the city of Lowell and National Grid, do I get my choice of any of those 3? Okay. But in any event, there is what we would be doing is buying in bulk electricity for the city of Lowell residents, and they would legally have to, this price would have to be less than what the default rate is for National Grid, and they would be locked into providing that. And so it would be a savings to the citizens. But I don't know if that answers your question, but perhaps we could have Brian Murphy from Colonial address the question.
So while he's up there, so Colonial Power Group is going to manage this. How were they selected?
They were selected through an RFP process. Okay. We had, I believe, 2 or 3 proposals. Tom was involved.
I think it makes sense to go over the roles. The city, first of all, the city's role is kind of a sponsorship role in this. We're sponsoring the program. We don't take any title to any of the transmission lines, the poles, or any, we don't assume any liability. The consultant, Colonial Power, is helping us through the legal paperwork to make this program happen and to ultimately help us implement it. National Grid is and will continue to be the biller no matter if a citizen elects to participate or not. And the alternative energy company, there are companies like Suez and Hess and others, they would be providing the actual electricity to National Grid. So in a sense, the players don't change a whole lot. We're just introducing a new supplier. But I'll bet you that Brian Murphy is better at explaining it than I am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Murphy with Colonial Power Group. We are the consulting group that's been retained by the city to help design, implement, and manage this process. And Mr. Moses, you really don't need us. You answered all the questions quite adequately, but I will be happy to expand on what has been said already and to answer any questions that the councilors have tonight. Keeping in mind that this is just one more step in moving this ball forward down the field. By no means are you at the end of the line here. So it's a lengthy process that began, back in February with the initial presentation, and has subsequently yielded a meeting with the Department of Energy Resources, as Mr. Moses said, to help fine-tune the plan that you have in front of you. And the plan is very similar, almost identical, to the communities across Massachusetts that have already implemented community aggregation. And that includes, as was mentioned earlier, the Cape Light Compact, which is a consortium of over 20 cities and towns on the Cape, and our stable of clients, including the town of Ashland, the city of Marlborough, the towns of Lunenburg, Lancaster, and Lanesborough. And there are a couple more, sort of developing across the state. In the western part of the state, there's the Hampshire Council of Governments, which is seeking to band together a lot of residents in the rural towns in between Springfield and the Berkshires. And there's also a Berkshire managers group that's trying to do the same thing for communities in the Berkshires. So it's something that really is spreading across the Commonwealth at last. I think as was mentioned earlier, competition never quite materialized for residents, and this is the way to make sure that they get the benefits of deregulation that have accrued to large users and industrial users like the city itself and its institutions like the university, hospitals, and other large consumers of energy. So that's the broad backdrop. I think Mr. Moses was right that it's fairly seamless from the consumer's point of view. A line item will change on the bill where it currently says basic service fixed. That line item would be substituted for the name of the power provider that the city selects through the bidding process that we will engineer on behalf of the city. It is an opt-out process, and I think that this is something that needs to be emphasized here tonight, and especially for folks that are listening or watching at home. The nature of, in order to deliver the savings, as was mentioned, you got to pool people together and create a bulk purchasing group. And in order to maximize the savings, the program is opt-out. In other words, all residents on basic service will be automatically enrolled in the city's program unless they affirmatively decline the discount. So I want to make that full stop right there, absolutely clear. And I'll like to take a question on that if anybody has one right now.
Council Martin and then Council Laurie.
Well, that partially answers my question, and I get this. When people that look at their bill will see that there's a charge for transmission, right, that is fairly constant across all users, I believe, at least all residential users. Then there's a charge for supplying the electricity, and that's where big users, businesses can go and negotiate a lower rate. The single-family user, I guess, is free to go negotiate its own rate too, but good luck, right? I mean, so, so they're right. Every once in a while, you get a solicitation, but I haven't signed up for that. I'm suspicious that there's really going to be savings. So here, I guess the good news is, at least by law, it cannot be any higher than the default rate, which I don't think is the case if you opt into one of these other services that are out there on your own. But my question, you know, you have to opt out, you don't opt in. So that kind of guarantees a larger pool, which gives you the ability to negotiate a better price. But how do you get to the price? Now, what if I assume we get a better price if no one opts out, but if 10,000 people opt out, you know, that we might get a lower price. So what happens there? And, you know, how long does it take? You give people a certain period of time to opt out, then you go negotiate. So how are those processes that follow after this?
Great questions, thank you. The bidding process, during the bidding process, suppliers who are interested in serving the customers of the city will get summaries of the load data that reflect the consumption over the course of the past 12 months by consumers on basic service. It is incumbent upon the supplier to demonstrate financial stability, a history of serving competitive markets, and the other non-price factors that you would consider in any bid. They also have to factor in anticipated opt-out rates, and we help them with that because we have experience in looking at those numbers over the course of many years serving our other clients, and I can tell you that in no case has the opt-out rate been less than 2%, and in no case has it been greater than 6%. So that's we tell the suppliers that's what you're looking at in terms of opt-out rates. That shows, people are generally, thankful when someone can give them a discount on something that is guaranteed and has no strings attached. You mentioned the other offers that you might get in the mail. There's usually some fine print there. They might be dangling some goodies like a gift card or something like that. But if you look at the rates, they promise to beat the utility rate for a very short period of time, and then there's oftentimes a cancellation fee, almost like a cell phone contract. If you want to abrogate that contract, you have to forfeit almost all the savings that you would have received from that deal. And so this program has none of those strings. And so the suppliers have to factor in the opt-out rate. They can't, put any cancellation fees in the contract. And so all those things are, some of them are by statute, most of them are by design. We put them in there to make this a consumer-friendly deal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been waiting for this program now. It was about January when we first found out about it, and I was at a meeting out at the Highlands neighborhood, and there was some questions on it. They were getting the letters that the manager talked about. I did have one question, though. 11.3, indemnification and risk associated with competitive market. In case the provider could not really supply the power.
Yep.
What would be the answer there?
In the case that the supplier goes, belly up, everybody returns to National Grid's basic service. Okay. So the worst case scenario is the status quo ante. It's whatever the rate you were paying beforehand. And National Grid is obligated by law to act as that provider of last resort. So that's a great question, but that's really the worst case scenario. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened yet. We only work with ones that we can count on.
So it's voluntary by the individuals, and if the company goes belly up, we just go back to National Grid?
Yeah, the lights never go out.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mendoza and then Councilor Elliott.
Okay. Again, mostly for the benefit of people in the listening audience, I read the report that we received that has a very detailed explanation of what will occur as we move forward. So basically what I understood from it, if I'm incorrect, just correct me if you would, everyone who has not chosen their own provider, so they're still on the basic rate, will automatically be included in this program. And the program is guaranteed to be less than what they're paying at this moment, or at the moment it begins, which is the basic rate. So everyone will initially have savings. And they won't have to do anything to get these savings if they're not already committed to a different supplier. Now, what's nice about this program is we're not signing anyone up for a long-term commitment. So that if at some point they want to choose their own supplier that provides a lower rate, they'll have the option to opt out. Of course, they have to complete a billing period, and then they'll be changed over. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, thank you for bringing that up. And I think it's mentioned in the plan itself. Three things. Number one, there's a mailing that goes to every consumer on basic service, and we use National Grid's data. They share with us the billing and service address of every consumer so that we can push the letters out to the resident and the small businesses here in the city. And by the way, the mail house we use is located in Lowell, so we're very confident that the mail will get there in a timely fashion. Number two, from that point forward, they have 30 days to opt out before the initial enrollment period. And subsequent to that, as you point out, they can opt out any time. So they're never locked in. If they get a solicitation in the mail that they find attractive, they can go with that. If for some reason they want to go back to basic service with National Grid, they can do that too. So the city has set up something that's, in some respect, a no-brainer. It gives them a discount, gives them options, and doesn't take away any rights.
I think, well, that's what I like about this program. In order to take advantage of the savings, they don't have to do anything. Now, if they don't want it, they can send in the opt-out card, return it to the provider, who will then not include them in the program. Now, if they opt out initially and regret it later, there is, I believe, a process that they can then opt in later. Is that correct?
Yes, if at some point they say, "Ooh, I opted out of that, and I really shouldn't have," they can petition to be allowed entry. They basically, call the supplier of record, and say, "I opted out by mistake. Can I come in?" And for residents, that's no problem.
Okay.
If it was a giant industrial user, the supplier needs to reserve the right to offer them a then current market rate, because they can't hold, as you folks know, the energy markets are so volatile, they can't hold the price that's as part of the initial contract, and then 5 months later they want to opt into it. They'll give them an offer, but then it'll be up to them to accept it.
Okay, so long as they have the capacity to fulfill, then they would be able to. So, that's what I like about this program. Really, the consumer can achieve savings without having to do anything other than continue to be part of the program. And I think we as a city are just a conduit for that. Now, I think there are questions about, does the city receive any money as part of this? I believe the answer is no, as far as the supply goes, to that it's we're just a sponsor, I think was the word that was used at one point, that we sponsor the program, but really the consumer is still buying the power from the supplier. National Grid will bill and then send the money to the supplier, whatever they're owed. I did an initial presentation, I haven't heard tonight or in here, was that there is a fee on the bill for energy saving programs that I believe is collected by National Grid, and I thought that either the supplier or we as a city then get to manage that fund to provide energy saving programs.
It's the conservation fund, and it's I think we spoke about it back in January, and I remember looking at it again some 15 years ago as a great opportunity for the community to gather that money that is being paid by the residents of the city. National Grid collects it now, and I don't think there's any, perhaps Mr. Murphy can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but right now that money comes in, and there's no guarantee it necessarily goes into the city of Lowell. Under a different scenario, and one that we would have to run the conservation programs ourselves, we're not looking to do that right at this point, but we would collect that money. That money would come in and we would use that money here in the city of Lowell. So that is an option to look at as we go down the road.
Okay.
Is that an accurate?
Perfectly accurate.
Okay. Well, to me, as I examine the program, my conclusion is that it's a win-win. I mean, we're providing a way for the city's residents to get cheaper electricity rates without having to do anything on their own. And if they do want to do something on their own that'll give them an even better program, they're free to do so. So I'm certainly supportive of the program as a way to, in general, save our residents money. Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
I don't disagree, but Mr. Murphy, would you object to coming to a subcommittee meeting to, we have 2 members that are missing here tonight. This was introduced in January when I'm not sure. I think the manager said someone wasn't here. I'm not looking to delay this just for the sake of delaying, but it is a new concept. I think there are, it's somewhat confusing. It's a good concept, and I understand the bulk purchase of electricity for people at home, but it would be helpful, I think it would be helpful if, there are a lot of questions here tonight. I'm sure people at home have a lot of questions, opting in, opting out, there are fees, and I'm not trying to make it any more confusing than it is, but it is new, and it is, I don't want to say uncharted, because you indicated some communities are doing this, and I do think it's a good thing for the consumers in the city, but I just have I just have questions, and I would be more comfortable if we could just have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion on all of the nuances and all the procedures and everything, just so people at home completely understand it. There are contracts that have to be signed, and there's just a lot of information to take this vote tonight. And if we could send it to a subcommittee and do it next week or something, I would appreciate it. I think it would be helpful to have, again, there's 2 members missing here tonight. So, it's just a thought. I don't even know we don't have an energy subcommittee, so I'd make a motion to send it to the environment subcommittee or finance, or and maybe the finance subcommittee, I don't know, but it just seems that it's makes some sense, looks like a good program, but if I just like to get some more information and some more questions answered, that's all.
Councilman Johnson?
Well, to Councilor Elliott's point, are we actually committing to anything at this point, or are we just proceeding to see who gives us a proposal so that we could then negotiate a contract with them, and would that, at that time, have to come back before the council?
That's more accurate. The latter's more accurate. We're not committing to anything at this point in time. We're just moving the process along. But certainly, this is whatever the council wishes to do on this.
If we're not committing to anything yet, I'm just wondering if we could take a parallel path.
Sure.
Send this to subcommittee so we could understand it better. But I think we could proceed at this point because we're not committing to any particular supplier or to the program itself, that if after we get proposals from these suppliers and we don't like it, we could still back out at that time. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, so I have no objection to sending it to subcommittee, but I think we could proceed with the process.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to both councilors. I think that's a good solution. Councilor Elliott, the only thing that we're concerned about right now is timing, and I know we're here asking you to move this forward, and it's, in some respects, an idea that you have to dust off from last winter, and you have a lot of questions about it. We would love to come back and give you all the information you can. We would like to move this forward just because we have to get this into the DPU if we want to get you out when National Grid's rates change again next spring. And so if there's a way to move in tandem that way so that you get all the questions answered that you want, and that the process can still inch forward so that when the time comes and ultimately there is a price before the city manager, you'll be ready to go at the right time.
Councilor Elliott?
But we are taking a vote tonight. I mean, it's not just moving the process forward. We're voting to adopt this plan, which commits the city to a particular process. Is that correct?
That's fair to say. You know, it does not bind the city to make the offer once the DPU approval process has gone through and once the competitive bids have been solicited. So only until that, until that brief period of time when the bids are in, does this thing really become a reality. So it's something that you can, I think you can take confidence in voting on, with the caveat that you want your questions answered as soon as possible, and know that you haven't bound the city to commit to anything.
Okay, but there are certain things we are committing here. I mean, we're committing that you're going to represent, and you're the consultant, but you're going to be responsible for moving this process forward, and correct?
Yes, that is true.
And how do you get paid? There's a 0.001% per kilowatt. And who pays that, the consumer, or?
It's embedded in the rate that the consumers pay. So when the suppliers bid that, when suppliers bid on the load for Lowell, they include that as a component of their overall price. So it's an all-in fixed rate that includes our fee as well.
Could you just explain the time frame? I mean, this came out in January. I mean, that's 11 months ago. I mean, I do vaguely remember the presentation, but why is this just on the agenda now? Why wasn't it sooner?
Mr. Manager?
If I may be the best to answer that. We brought this to the council. We didn't want to go forward with this on our own, so we brought it to the council, and we advised the council, and I can't recall whether it was a vote or not to move forward, but there was general support of the council at the time, and so we moved forward to select the consultant. As I said, we went through an RFP process. That was time-consuming, and then there was the whole process of getting before the Department of Energy and have them approve the plan. So that's a time-consuming. And in fact, that's why we chose Colonial, is because they had experience in doing this for other communities in the Commonwealth. And but there is a time-consuming process that has to be go through there. So then we just, and now that that's completed and that's been approved by the state, the plan's been approved by the state, we wanted to bring it to the council now so that we could move forward, because obviously the sooner we get this program in place, the sooner people start saving money, and we wanted to obviously maximize for the residents. But
There was another speaker registered for the next item, but as it's obviously related to this item, I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules to allow for the speaker. So moved by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Council Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Mr. Willett.
Wonderful presentation.
If you could
Oh, I'm sorry.
state your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. My name is David Ouellette. I'm a Lowellian. I generally agree with the concept. I, too, myself, have been working on such an agenda that to provide green electricity to folks here in Lowell. I'm proud to announce since June, when the company that I represent came into town, became licensed in Massachusetts, that I have nearly 100 Lowellians consuming electricity that is either 100% green or is 27.5% green. I understand that there are going to be competitive forces. My company is able to offer electricity that meets or beats in all of the 9 states it does business against 33 different utilities. Savings have ranged from 6 to 11%, so that is obviously very germane. My central concern is that you got to be careful of what you get, because the least pricey, most competitive priced electricity will come from surplus coal generating facilities in Texas. And so, obviously saving money for your clientele is very, very important. And I welcome the competition. I'm knocking on doors one at a time, trying to tell people that with selecting my product, they're profoundly impacting positively the environment. They're also saving money, and they're also supporting local jobs, of which I've been unemployed for 3 years and have taken this opportunity. There's 5 or 6 people here in Lowell that are working full-time, knocking on doors one at a time. Now, this gentleman was truthful when he mentioned that the residential market is hard to penetrate, and this is a very efficient, effective model to get people en masse. I'm not concerned about that. What I am concerned about is my ability to talk to people and convince them to select electricity based primarily on its green content. Because when the truth of the matter comes down, on a residential bill that is $40, saving $2 a month or $3 a month isn't a deal breaker, shouldn't be a deal breaker. So the concerns I have is that if people are offered a better deal from a greener product, that they have that ability to empower themselves and to act upon that. So the 3 or 4 questions I have is, one is, where does green content enter into the equation? I know that the state mandates that there's a minimum green content of 7.5%, and so everyone is on that standard. But the other 92.5% can come from surplus coal in Texas versus our present mix versus those of us that are in the green community that are trying to promote electricity that's either 100% derived from local renewable resources, or in the case of my company, 27.5%. So that would be the, what are we comparing? We're comparing 92.5% coal content derived energy versus, so that would be a concern. And that the people be able to exercise their opportunity going forward. Are they locked in? Okay, those are my concerns.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
I'll ask Mr. Murphy if he could speak to this, but I believe one option that we could pursue along those lines, because hopefully, as Mr. Ouellette knows, we are a very active community in terms of being green and being sustainable, and we've done a number of things here in the city to make ourselves more energy efficient, but also looking at reducing our carbon footprint with our energy programs downtown through the Department of Energy. But I believe we could, down the road, if it may be too late for this solicitation, but you could speak to that, but down the road we could offer not only this product, but we could offer a green product that would become available to citizens of the city. So they can have a choice then of going lowest, greenest, National Grid, whatever the choice that it would give consumers a choice.
That's
but
right.
Is that accurate?
That's an accurate statement. Yes, the city can, in the RFP that we put out on its behalf, can mandate whatever it wants to see in terms of a menu of options. It's true that you are required by statute to beat the default service price, and the default service price is, as the gentleman mentioned, a mixture of traditional, fossil fuels plus green power. And so, in order to get under that price, it's going to be difficult, at least initially, to go 100% green or even 27.5% green and still beat that rate. Notwithstanding that, we would welcome the gentleman's company to make a bid when the time comes. If there's a way that company can be competitive and offer the people of Lowell a green power product that beats National Grid's basic service rate and supports the local business, by all means, let's take a look at that and see if that's the best option. Just as a matter of clarification, no consumer would ever be prohibited from signing up with any company here. And in fact, communities that aggregate wind up having more educated residential consumers, and so they're actually more open to the messages that are delivered by other power marketers. And so, we like to think that we're not necessarily competitors. We're actually, I think, we're hopefully helping you in some way to bring awareness to the power of choice that's out there. And lastly, the power sources here in New England, thankfully, don't have much to do with coal in Texas. The power mix is about 1/3 nuclear, 1/3 natural gas, and about 7 to 10% renewable. and the balance is coal and diesel fuel. So, those plants are hopefully being phased out, but more and more we're relying on natural gas as the fuel that sets the marginal price here in New England.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Just one more question. Look, I understand that this needs to move forward, but it is going to be confusing for people at home, and it is a new concept, and I just want to make sure that people understand, what the process is, what their bill is going to look like, and I think a public education process is important, and it is, you buy anything in bulk, it's going to save you money, and I understand, but what is the next process on this?
The next step is to file the plan as approved by this council, along with its related documents, with the Department of Public Utilities.
Right.
Once that filing takes place, it's generally about 3 months before you get approval. And
But then there's another public hearing on the plan by department?
Yeah, the department holds a public hearing at its offices in South Station.
Okay, then there's a selection of the competitive supplier that's going to be, it's going to be bid, and then the manager signs a contract, and then there's going to be a notification of enrollment for eligible consumers. This is the time frame.
Correct.
And when will 1.9, when will consumers, when will they be notified?
If all goes according to our schedule, we'd like to see the Department of Public Utilities approve the plan and give the city the right to go out to bid before the end of March. At that point, that's when we'll know what the price to beat is. National Grid will have disclosed its rates for the upcoming May meter read for 2013. So the month of April would be that 30-day opt-out period, and that's the point at which there has to be a pretty strong blitz, and we'll be reaching out to the city manager's office and folks who have experience with public outreach to make sure the consumers are as aware as possible. We've tied, and I'll give you just, this is anecdotal regarding the city of Marlborough. We did a lot of public education. We went out to, we had coffee sessions at elementary schools across the city. We did that before we filed with the Department of Public Utilities. By the time we got out of the department and got to bid and did the opt-out, it was old news, just like, I guess, maybe the presentation from last winter is for you folks. So if we do a lot of informational sessions now, it's going to get lost. It's going to be ancient history by the time next spring rolls around, and that's the time to really do a full court press and make sure that there's a very concentrated burst of education and media-related content.
How long do you envision these contracts that we're going to sign with these suppliers?
Our experience has been, it's been anywhere from 6 months to a couple years, and so we're going to, gauge the market.
If we don't like one supplier, they're not giving us a good rate. There's a better competitive rate on the market. When that term expires, you're going to say, hey, see you later. We get a better rate, and people in the city can say, look, I can save more in my bill. Can they change as well?
Yeah, the end user, the consumer, can change anytime he or she wants, and the city can, put the job out to bid, so to speak, with the termination of any contract that it does, just like any other bid that you conduct. You can always go shopping for another supplier.
So what are you going to put this bid out for? When, if everything goes, how long is this solicitation ID looking? Do you have any idea?
Not at this time. I think we'll go out to the market and see what they are offering us for, 6 months to 2 years. I'll tell you, it's basically the same way we do energy procurement for the city. We go out and shop the market, and we make determinations whether we buy for, I don't think we've ever bought for 6 months. Do you recall? Generally, we buy for a year or 2 years, and we lock in a rate. Are we going to be part of this, Mr. Manager? No, we will not be part of this.
Wouldn't that increase our purchasing power?
I don't know if we're able to be part of this. Can we be
once
part
your
of it?
existing
Okay.
contract expires, you can.
We could. Okay, so we could, if we could put that out. I apologize. I wasn't sure about that, but we have our own contracts in place right now, but so we would get the best possible price for the longest, for the based on sort of what we're seeing out there. I will say that, you know, while I was sitting here, I took an opportunity to send out a few emails to some other communities that you had mentioned, and I only got one response back so far, but it was very well received in a neighboring community, that particularly among the seniors, who saw it as a very positive, and there were no complaints, and it worked very well. So I think the track record is out there, and I haven't heard back from the other communities or gotten in touch with anyone down in the Cape, where it's been in place for quite a period of time. But again, this is, from our perspective, from the administration's perspective, this is something that we saw as a good opportunity to benefit the residents as a whole, and but ultimately, you know, this is up to the council whether they would like to go down this road that has been proven successful in other communities or not.
Well, I think it makes some sense. I think it's been effective up in New Hampshire, hasn't it? With people can opt out of PSNH now with an alternative
That's true.
option. So if we could, if you don't mind coming to a meeting at some point, I understand you have to move forward. I think it's a good thing. I want to support it, but just want to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I think, Councilor, to your point, and it really goes to, and again, to the information that I did receive, and you do the publicity as part of this, and I think the subcommittee would be a good opportunity to once again lay it out there and answer all the questions that are out there. But if we can move as well, that I think that will benefit us.
Thank you. I'd then entertain a motion.
To
approve by
Second
Councilor
it.
Martin, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilman Mendoza.
And send it to the subcommittee simultaneously.
And simultaneously
Yeah.
send it to the subcommittee for discussion.
Second that.
Seconded by Councilor Laurie. Roll call, please.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendoza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia. Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
Thank you. Next is a related resolution authorizing the City of Lowell to become an aggregator of electric power on behalf of its residential and business communities. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendoza, second by Councilor Noon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council resolution authorizing the City of Lowell to become an aggregator of electric power on behalf of its residential and business communities. Motion to approve by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Mendoza. Roll call, please.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendoza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia. Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
That's 7 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a communication to appoint Susan Halter to the LTC board.
Move to approve.
Move for approval by Councilor Noon. Oh, excuse me. It's just motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Mendoza. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Well, is she here?
No, she's away for the holidays, but as you know, she's an employee of the city, and she serves in her capacity as school director on that. But if the council
Well,
wants
does the cool director go automatically to the board?
it's up to the manager makes a number of appointments to the LTC board, and I use all people from the administration. I believe the mayor appoints people from, or the council appoints people, I can't remember how that works, from the community at large to serve on the LTC board. But
Okay.
Mayor,
And it's no confirmation required.
Correct.
Councilor Noon.
if I may, since this is replacement of Elsie Nunt, that the manager sent a letter of thanks to Elsie Nunt for the service she provided to the city in the past.
Sure. Motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have reports, subcommittee reports. If Councilman Mendoza would take the chair. Thank you.
Subcommittee reports and report of the Environmental Subcommittee. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Councilor. We did have the Environmental Subcommittee to discuss some proposed changes to the solid waste and recycling ordinance. Present were myself, Councilor Noon, Councilor Laurie, and Councilor Mendonça. We did have a lengthy discussion, not just about the proposed changes to the ordinance, but some future recommendations that might be brought back. But essentially, the proposed changes deal with really cleaning up some of the parts of the ordinance that haven't been addressed properly, I suppose, by making sure that some of the items like misplaced bins and this type of thing, which costs the city money, is actually addressed. It also deals with the enforcement mechanisms to be put in place so that we can get greater compliance and raise our recycling rates throughout the city. As I said before, we did discuss some other items on what we can do from here on out. But the one motion on the floor, I suppose, was to take the language changes as amended slightly and refer them back to the law department to draw up for a proper vote and return to the city council.
Okay. Shall we take up that motion now?
Sure, I offer that as in the form of a motion.
To refer the language changes to the law department for a proper vote by Mayor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion's carried. Motion to accept the report of progress and place on file by Mayor Murphy, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion's carried. Mayor Murphy, if you'd resume the chair.
Thank you. Councilor Martin?
Thank you. Last week, the Public Safety Subcommittee met, and it's reflected in the minutes that we approved earlier, but there was a request by the Citywide Neighborhood Group that the Public Safety Subcommittee meet regularly. They specifically requested a monthly meeting on a certain topic for the next 12 months, and I've spoken to the other members of the subcommittee, Councilor Elliott, Councilor Noon. So we're going to move forward with that notion and try and file a motion for the next meeting, but wanted to at least report that that idea just did not vanish, that we're working on that, and we'll be coming back to the council with a series of dates, and some of these meetings may involve other subcommittees as well, so there'd be joint meetings, but that's an idea that we've taken seriously, we think has merit, and we're going to work on.
Thank you.
If I could also, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
It's not on the agenda, but there was a communication in our packet from the assessor requesting that we set December 4th as a public hearing date for the minimum residential factor.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Martin. Councilor Martin.
So I would suggest that we act on this letter and schedule December 4th for a public hearing on the minimum residential factor.
A motion to set December 4th as the public hearing date for the...
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Any further discussions on the subcommittee reports? Councilor Laurie.
During the meeting last week, the public safety, and I'd like to commend Councilor Martin. It was a good meeting. The district attorney's office was talking about the role of the judges, and I had brought up the incident where there were, 10 Johns arrested out on Westford Street, and basically nothing happened to them. And, I'll pick up the paper and I see arrests for prostitution and other things in some of the towns, and, I question whether there's some economic, social judgments on the bench that, well, it's the cities, and that's the way it is. But, there's a need to protect the integrities of this neighborhood. And I'm not saying that is what they're doing, but when I see the different responses by the courts in the paper, of course it could be by county, I don't know. But, I have to question on how the cities are treated. And one thing that the DA's office did say is that we have to educate the judges on what happens when they return people to the city, or when when someone's arrested and they're released? And I asked if we could make an impact statement, and they said, no, you can't do that. It's not like a victim's impact. But the word went out, we need to educate the judges. And I was wondering if there's something we could do, or through the law department, or through the police department, really to send a message from the city as a whole, from the council, from the administration, that the actions that they don't take in some of these cases have a severe effect on the integrity in the neighborhoods in the city. And that's what I'm asking tonight. Is there something we can do looking forward to let the judges know? Their decisions might be based on whatever, probably law, but as they send people back to the cities, those 10 people who were arrested for prostitution and the Johns, they're back on the street in no time, especially the Johns. They've not $150 fine, $125 fine. The integrity of that neighborhood is gone. You can't let your kids walk down the street. Your couples can't walk the street at night. And my question is, can we devise something from the city, whether the law department or the police, to send to the judges that, we just can't do this anymore. We can't treat the cities like this. There has to be some penalties.
We can take that up at another time, a different meeting. This is really veering off
Well,
the
it was brought up during a public safety meeting. I brought it up.
Well, sure,
And
but
the response from the DAs was
we're,
to educate the judges, so.
Sure, but when I ask for any future, subcommittee reports, it's just to actually talk about what's on the agenda or to announce a new
Okay.
meeting.
That was part of it was part of that package, so that's why I brought it up.
Okay, but it's a new policy item, so.
No, it was part of that meeting. I brought it up at that meeting, specifically to ask the district attorneys their
Okay.
opinion. So, okay.
Which was discussed last week.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the subcommittee reports, announcing future times or whatever? Seeing none, we then move to utility petitions. We have one for a gas main, National Grid request for main location at Marginal Street. I'd entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing for December 4th, 2012.
So move.
At 7 p.m. So moved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. We have a letter from the auditor, the engineer, asking that we hold the application. There's a problem with the application, and Lisa DeMayo, the city engineer, sent a letter, and she says, at this time, we recommend holding their application until sufficient information is provided for proper review.
I don't.
Unless that's changed, unless we have something new from the engineer.
Mr. Manager.
I believe, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I have here an email from Ms. DeMayo from yesterday regarding a clarification that National Grid sent in a request for a main location on Marginal with a sketch that was incorrect. Page 18 and 19, duplicate in the packet. She wrote a letter requesting a corrected plan. They've provided that new sketch with this correct information. They approved, the engineers approves that request. She says you consider page 14, and that they have approved.
She's all set with this?
She's all set. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize. I should have read that into the record before that.
Thank you.
So we do have someone here from National Grid. I don't know if we...
Well, I mean, we don't have a public hearing till December 4th, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, under motions, we have Council Leahy request the city manager prepare a cost analysis report regarding snow removal for average snowstorms. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I have called the manager's office. I've spoken to you a few times on this. So what I'm looking for in the report is average cost for an average storm and a breakdown on pickup trucks to the Bobcats to the bigger trucks. So just trying to get an idea how much we're spending, if we're duplicating it. I spoke to you about the Bobcat situation where I think we might be sending them out twice versus can they just go out once? And in the report, you know, if I'm wrong about something, about, you know, we duplicating services or whatever, that could be in the report. And the other thing, I just wanted to make sure that, that I've noticed, and I've had experience with this about 10, 12 years ago, you know, other guys, some pieces of equipment out too long. Who's keeping an eye on that? So that's what I'm looking for a breakdown. Thank you.
Perhaps, Council, what I can do is we'll get you a report on our whole snow operations, and we can bring that in and explain how we proceed, and we'll make sure we hit on the Bobcat issue and get some type of sense of what we spend on a storm. There is no real. Unfortunately, it's hard to say what an average storm is, but there are different ways that communities look at that. One way of looking at it is a cost per inch or something like that. So we'll put some information together for you on that.
Do you think we have a cost per hour? Like if a snowstorm is, you know, I wonder if there's a way to at least break it down even by.
We can look at.
You can look at a past storm and say that most of the equipment was out for 10 hours. Right. What does that cost us for?
Part of the issue there.
An average cost. Right.
Part of the issue there, and I'll have to talk to Mr. Snow about this, and this is the type of data collection we're trying to get more and more of. And I'm not sure what information is out there to compile that report at this point in time. But we're trying to do more and more of that. But let me see what we can pull together for you on that.
Because what I'm trying to get at too is, you know, it depends on the season. Last year we had maybe just a few plowable storms. Right. I know we had a lot of sanding to do, but even I used to find that toward the end of the season, you know, you just want to go home.
Right.
You know, you're tired. So if they're out there driving around for the last 2 hours and you're not really moving any snow, you know, maybe that's some sort of a savings for the city.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And, you know, that's our goal, is obviously
Sure.
to come in at the lowest cost. There is cleanup work that takes place at the end of the storm where we go out and we push back to open up lanes of traffic. And I know you mentioned a street to me last when we talked about this, that, you know, 2 years ago, the really bad winter where we got storm after storm after storm, there was a street that was only 1.5 lanes. Or that's the type of thing we don't want to happen. So even though the storm may have ended, we want to be out there pushing that snow back so that there's plenty of room for the next storm, and there's plenty of ability for snow melt to drain properly. So we can put a number of that, but obviously our goal here is minimal cost, maximum impact.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Leahy. Request the city manager discuss with the school department regarding having no school in session on elected days. Second by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. On this motion also, if just getting several calls from various people, you know, should we have students in class in the schools during voting day? Is it safe? Is it a problem? You know, should we be using the schools? I know that we're going through this whole discussion now, and this will probably be brought up, but you know, should we be using the schools? Should we try to be using other municipal buildings? And if we do, if the convenience of the schools is the best solution, should the kids be in class that day, you know, for safety reasons? And I know that there's things to work out with school unions, with the school department. So it's not really a clear-cut case, but the discussion, if we could have the discussion, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion under this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Leahy. Request the city manager and proper department work with the Friends of Lowell High to construct a new concession stand at Colley Stadium. Seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. It's my understanding that years ago, we did have another concession stand over on the far end of the stadium. So the Friends of Lowell High have asked me to bring this forward. If you could direct them in the proper direction to have a discussion, and then that way we can try to find the best solution to this, and whether it's something we can do through the city, through a sharing costs with the community, matching funds, anything like that, and come up with a good plan design and get the concession stand out at the stadium that would benefit both the people that come to use the stadium and the Friends of Lowell High that depend on those funds for the various teams. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Noon. Request the city manager instruct the law department to review all possible zoning restrictions regarding any marijuana dispensaries in the city. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor Murphy. Now that the question 3 has passed, and I know that some city and towns has already put together ordinance with regard to a zoning ordinance so that the dispensary won't be put near the school zone or the school, the park, the libraries, and so on. And I ask that we do the same here in Lowell, so that, because you can be sure that Lowell is going to have at least one of a few pot dispensaries, so just trying to make sure that it does not happen near park, school, libraries, clinic and whatnot. So I would ask that through you to the manager to the law department to have the city solicitor draft an ordinance on that, and maybe look at other city and town that right now working on it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. Request the city council discuss gun buyback program and determine if funding from the law enforcement and trust funds can be used. Seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I came up with this idea, or I've been reading about it, following our discussions at the Public Safety Subcommittee. And I know it's not a new program. I did provide a packet of information on other communities that have done it with some success. I put law enforcement trust fund because I know our tax dollars are tight, but a number of years ago, the city did actually, I believe the city participated, or Chief Davis held such a program. And if you look at just recently, the city of Haverhill implemented a buyback program. It's an anonymous program. Some communities use gift cards. Some, I think the time when the city did it, we actually paid money for the guns. And essentially, the communities, they get the guns, they confiscate or receive the guns, and then they're essentially melted and disposed of. So, in light of the fact, the subcommittee last week, we were asking the chief how many guns are out there, what can we do about it, and the gun laws. It seems that we can't do much about the gun laws. So, I thought that we would take a look at how can we get them off the street, and this, this is one way to do it. Worcester did it last year. Some other large communities clearly with significant gun problems. Chicago, but then even out in Seattle, communities across the country are looking for ways to reduce the number of guns in cities, and this is a way to do it. So I wanted to have this discussion, see if there is a way we can use law enforcement trust fund money, which is money collected from drug busts. I know there are some restrictions, but I think it makes some sense to take a look at it and get guns off the street. I know some churches are used in other communities, New York and the Queens, but even the city of Boston has a program. So I don't have to belabor the issue. It was just something I want to take a look at and see it's a way to get guns off the street. So that's the motion. Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
I totally concur with Councilor Elliott. That is, we have to do something about it. The speaker who spoke at the subcommittee, public safety subcommittee meeting, Assistant ADA, Grisel, said, hey, we have some of the toughest gun law in the country. And, maybe true, but still didn't stop it. And it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of solution to it. And it's certainly one way we can look at it and to try to maybe restart the process that Chief Davis started. So I support Councilor Elliott's motion wholeheartedly on this. We have to do something about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I want to say that I think this is a great idea. I didn't know if we had done this before or not, but it seems like a good idea to at least have it. If you could do something like this every 2 years or every year, I'm sure there's plenty of guns out there that are unwanted and people just want to get rid of them. So initially, you probably would have a good support for this. And then if you kept it going over the years, people would just turn those guns in. So this is a great idea. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, and I applaud the idea from Councilor Elliott, and not only the idea, but the source of probably the monies to try to buy them back, and anything's worth a shot. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilman Donza.
Well,
I didn't mean that.
Well, I'm all for getting guns off the streets and reducing the potential that they'd be used for violent ends. But my concern with programs like this is that the results have shown that they don't actually reduce the guns we want to reduce. We wind up getting guns that are either legal or they're not serviceable, and we spend money on these guns that are not going to be used in violent ways. So I'm just concerned that, yeah, if we measure success by how many guns we get, then we'll be successful. If we can measure how many would have been used in a violent situation and have prevented that, I think we'd get a different answer. And that people who use them for violent means generally don't turn them in. They're going to hold on to them. They got them illegally. They're going to keep them illegally. And we could spend a lot of funds on a program like this that maybe the chief would want to use in a different way. If this were truly effective, I'm sure the chief would have already done it. And that's my concern with using these dollars for a buyback program. Yes, we'll get guns off the street, but I'm not so sure we'll get the right guns off the street, or in another way, the wrong guns, the ones that could be used for violence. So I have concerns about doing a program like this.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. I don't know about right guns or wrong guns, but I think any guns we take off the street is one less gun that could be involved in any type of crime. I asked the chief last week, can you quantify how many guns do you think there are on the street? He has no idea. And some of the guns that I think we want to get all the guns that we possibly can off the street, whether it's, I don't know, anywhere. There was, just last year, there was a mother, her son had a gun in the house in Lawrence. There's actually an article I included. And, her son fired the shot, almost hit his sister in the other room. That's a gun that, I understand it's not involved with violence, but who knows if it could have been involved with. The mother didn't even know it was there. So that's why I put the Law Enforcement Trust Fund, but quite frankly, if we have to use other resources, I think it's well worth it considering the magnitude that the chief, or I shouldn't say magnitude, the chief doesn't even know how many guns are in the city. So, I think it's an effective tool. Many communities are looking at this tool, Law Enforcement Trust Fund. That is money that is confiscated, or it's money that we get for drug busts from the state and the federal level. I think it's a perfect way, because many of the guns that are being used are drug-related, as the chief told us last week. So that's the reasoning behind it. I don't know if there's a right gun or a wrong gun, or guns that we want to get. I personally think we want to get all the guns. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support the motion. I think it's at least a worthwhile idea to explore. You know, Councilor Elliott mentioned that when Ed Davis was chief, he thought we had a similar program, and my memory is we did have a similar program, but I'm not sure we paid for the guns. It was more a promotional thing. Now, and on the other hand, I don't think the money is I don't think it's a big expense here. If it's determined that paying gets you more. There are conflicting studies on how effective this is. Councilor Elliott provided some materials. At least some people think it's worked. Other communities seem to have had success with it. So I think it's at least worth hearing from the chief on this, whether, you know, it's this program, a buyback program, a kind of public safety campaign where you encourage turn-in. You know, I think, you know, any option is worth considering. And, you know, whether we end up with a program where you pay or not, I can't believe that's going to be the determining factor, whether you give somebody a $25 gift card, a $50 gift card or something. But I think it's given the recent incidents here late in the summer and early fall, I think it's a worthwhile thing to at least take a look at.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If it's amenable to the maker of the motion, just to amend to refer to the city manager. All those in favor?
Yep.
Signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next motion by Councilor Laurie. Request the city manager have discussion with superintendent of schools regarding the possibility of combining summer programs. Seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion came about a couple of weeks ago. I had a discussion with Superintendent of Schools, Gene Franco, and we were talking about the park program, which came back tonight. It was very successful on our part, the police in the parks, and she was talking about their summer programs in the schools, the educational, and we just started saying, geez, wonder if we could mix them, you know, combine them, and the kids who are in summer school take part in some of the summer programs, the children in the summer programs maybe get some of the educational benefits. So that's basically the idea. And one part of the summer program we did have, there were two sites that were closed. One was Stark Lowe's, and I think, the other one was the Bartlett, because of lack of interest. And I think that was because no one really knew about it. It was our first year. And I think it was lack of notification. So I think combining the two not only would enhance the programs, make them even better than what we had last year, which was certainly great, and will at least get the word out a little bit more. And if we could probably have something down by February, talking to some parents. One was a school committee woman, Scott. Parents make plans for their children by February or March. So if we could, and I know we're trying to move with our program, so thank you.
Further discussion on this motion? All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Entertain a motion to adjourn by Councilman Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Happy Thanksgiving.